There aren't many football managers who captivate and engage a fan base while transcending the sport as much as Jose Mourinho did in his prominent and prolific spell in management. From assembling dominant team after dominant team, Mourinho disrupted the game and became a serial winner. This is the making of the special. Remember to join the records. It's all that we ask, and it is free to subscribe. Born on January 26, 1963 in Setúbal, Portugal, Mourinho's journey in the sport began amidst humble beginnings. His early days saw him show a variety of skills, from coaching youth teams at Vitória de Setúbal to immersing himself in the intricacies of player development and management. Mourinho was laying the groundwork for what would be a storied career. Yet, it was a fateful encounter with legendary English manager Sir Bobby Robson that would truly set Mourinho on the path to greatness. Robson, in need of an interpreter during a stint managing Portuguese club Sporting, found Mourinho not just a talented translator, but an ambitious and assertive coach. His keen understanding of the game and his knack for effective communication immediately caught the eye of Robson. Jose wasn't a glamorous or even successful footballer. His father, Felix, was a player and later a manager, but as a kid, he would be attentive, asking his father little details about his job. What it was like, how did he do it, even providing his father reports on the team. I think we all can relate to some football manager simulation. We just didn't have a father figure that was coaching at the youth or the professional level. He saw his future more in management instead of playing. It all started when he decided to quit business school and instead take up the subject of sports science. Mourinho was on a crusade to get his foot in the door of football. He had tried a variety of roles to get closer to a coaching or managing position, and a meeting with Bobby Robson would change his career forever. Mourinho understood the potential of an opportunity to be close to a top-level manager. So despite being a translator, he still took the position. It makes me think back to a famous quote.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And even though Jose Mourinho started as a translator, he was meant for greatness. He had that potential, and he was gonna climb the ladder. And shocking to nobody, in typical Mourinho fashion, he had all the self-belief in the world. He knew he was capable of becoming the best. So despite being just a translator, he would offer his tactical advice as well as provide reports to Robson. Robson was impressed, and Jose was quickly promoted to a full-fledged position as they moved from Sporting to Porto. Most of his early career involved following Robson from club to club as his assistant. They were a deadly duo, rafting in trophies and accolades. This included a stint with FC Barcelona, where he would first meet and become good friends with the now legendary manager Pep Guardiola. There was a changing of the guard at Barcelona as Robson left, this time without his trusty sidekick. Instead, Jose stayed to work with Luis van Gaal. He had a somewhat different relationship with Van Gaal, but he would receive an invaluable education in coaching. Van Gaal gave him more input and helped massively in Jose's emergence as a manager. Mourinho's breakthrough as a manager came when he was appointed as the head coach of Benfica in September in the year 2000. And unfortunately, his timing couldn't have been worse. He joined the club and had an average but steady 6 wins from 11 matches, and a change in ownership meant he would be relieved of his duties within just a few months. It was time to reset and start lower down the leagues with União de Leiria. Here, he would learn the importance of identifying talent, especially on a budget. Jose had little spending power, so relied on buying promising young players to try to improve the overall health of the team.
Before Porto Leiria, of course, I was working with a club with not the financial potential to think big, to buy big, and to scout in the top, let's say, places.
His destiny for greatness was relentless. After just 23 games, he was approached for the big job in Portugal at FC Porto. Despite limited managerial experience, he wasted no time in making his mark. In his first full season in charge, Mourinho led Porto to a third-place finish, where he was able to consolidate the club, which was going through a transitionary phase. Again, he applied the same principles from his previous managerial experience. Bosingwa, Paulo Ferreira, Benny McCarthy would strengthen key areas to mount a full title challenge. With the foundations built, Jose would go on to dominate, winning the league, the Portuguese Cup, and the Europa League. He wasn't satisfied. In 2004, he would go on to achieve an incredible feat, winning the Champions League. While the finals were won almost before kickoff, the semis have cemented Jose Mourinho in football stardom. Alex Ferguson was an imposing figure, known to intimidate and bully both the opposition managers and referees. But when coming face to face with Jose, he was unmoved. And when Porto would score the winner, Jose made sure to celebrate accordingly. After becoming immensely wealthy, Chelsea needed a manager in the dugout that would reflect this new, disruptive, and boisterous London club. Maybe not new, but you get the idea. And Jose Mourinho was the perfect fit. Mourinho's impact was immediate. His confidence rubbed off on the squad. His first press conference, he announced to the world that Chelsea had a top coach.
I think I'm a special one.
And throughout his career, Jose has had a certain confidence, maybe even an arrogance, depending on the perspective and who you're talking to. But that ego was not only necessary, but made him stand out. He was untouchable at Chelsea. He could call how a game would go before the ball had even been kicked. It's no surprise he went on to win the Leagues Cup and back-to-back Premier League titles, putting Chelsea on the map as a major European superpower. His teams were so solid. In the first year, Chelsea only conceded 15 goals throughout the season, which is still a Premier League record to this day. While Chelsea were buying good players, they were also buying the right players. Petr Cech, Michael Essien, Didier Drogba would revolutionize the squad to an elite level for years to come. Players who were committed. He had nurtured a dressing room atmosphere that fought for each other and set the highest of standards. An FA Cup in 2006 would round off his stint in England, winning every single trophy. After a disagreement with the owner, Roman Abramovich, Jose would go on to take charge of Inter Milan. And as with England, Mourinho would do more of the same in Italy, winning the league and the Super Cup in his first season. He initially struggled in Europe, however. He couldn't get the team to click on those European nights. And to make matters worse, Inter Milan's fierce rivals, AC Milan, were getting UCL trophies constantly. Speaking of, there's a video on this channel covering Paolo Maldini's career, the god of defending. Back at Inter, Mourinho was hatching a plan to bridge the gap with their rivals. Astute signings created a historic treble-winning side. He was able to motivate the team with that siege mentality that carried on throughout all competition. In the Champions League, he would come face-to-face with Barcelona, a side that was coached by Pep Guardiola. But it was rumored that the job should have been his. The story goes that after leaving Chelsea, Mourinho was in talks for a sensational move back to FC Barcelona. Everything had been agreed upon until one man pulled the plug and promoted Pep from the B team instead. That man was Mr. Barcelona himself, Johan Cruyff. So it's safe to say there was a lot of emotion heading into the semifinals of the Champions League. After winning the treble, it was time to move on to another challenge. Portugal, England, and Italy had all been emphatically conquered, and now it was time to join a team that FC Barcelona hated more than most, Real Madrid. Mourinho's next chapter unfolded at Real Madrid in 2010, where he was immersed in a fierce rivalry with the Barcelona manager, Pep Guardiola. Despite the intense competition, Mourinho steered Real Madrid to success, ending Barcelona's domestic dominance by 2012, clinching La Liga title. One of the finest rivalries in the sport was this era of La Liga. Pep versus Jose, Messi versus Ronaldo, FC Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Mourinho's tactical, pragmatic approach and his ability to motivate his players in high-pressure situations made him a formidable opponent for Guardiola's Barcelona. But rarely was he able to beat them in head-to-head matchups. And by his high standards, Jose never quite reached the level of success that Los Blancos were expecting. You could argue partially due to his personal vendetta with Barcelona, but I'd like to think that the Barcelona side managed by Pep Guardiola is one of the greatest teams ever assembled in football history, which led Mourinho to part ways with the club and revisit an old flame. In 2013, Mourinho made a highly anticipated return to Chelsea for his second spell as a manager. Despite facing heightened expectation, Jose delivered results. Masterminding a lethal partnership with the likes of Cesc Fabregas and Diego Costa, Chelsea went on to dominate the season and win another league title. Mourinho's charismatic persona, his tactical approach, and his ability to invigorate the squad endeared him to Chelsea fans once again. But then something very unusual happened. Chelsea's form had fallen off a cliff. Jose was fired, with the club sitting in 14th place. Not to mention his prickly relationship with his medical staff that led to a court settlement after an altercation with Eva Carneiro. For many, this was the end of the elite level that Mourinho had reached. Following his departure in 2015, Mourinho embarked on managerial stints with several other top clubs, including Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, and AS Roma. While his time at these clubs yielded varying degrees of success, Mourinho's impact on the footballing landscape remained significant. While he couldn't resurrect Manchester United, he did have the best success in the post-Alex Ferguson era. Tottenham was somewhat of an outlier as he failed to win anything during the time with the club. But in all fairness, it's not as if Tottenham had been collecting trophies prior to Jose Mourinho. And that leads us to Roma. He collected silverware for the club, but was surprisingly sacked despite having a good relationship with the organization. And he is now on the lookout for his next challenge, or at least I'd like to think so. Jose Mourinho's legacy in football transcends mere statistics and silverware. He is revered as one of the most influential and successful managers in the history of the sport, with his innovative approaches to tactics, man management, and psychological warfare shaping the modern game. Whether as the special one or simply Jose Mourinho, his impact remains unparalleled. Where he goes next, it's hard to predict, but what is certain is it will be worth watching.